Yeah, Kelly, this is Ryan from the TRS podcast.
Hey Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How about yourself?
Not too shabby. Just kicking my shoes off, catching up on a little daily news.
Right on.
The usual, yeah.
Greg was actually on the podcast, I want to say, gosh, a little over almost 3 years ago, I guess now, right when Heart of a Monster came out. And it was funny because I think he did the interview, he was like at a hotel, and like it was busy, and I think he was at the hotel pool or something, and we did the interview.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
funny. But, well, I appreciate you guys.
3 years ago already.
Yeah, I know. It probably sounds pretty crazy, man. That album was, 3 years ago, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last 5 years have just gone by so quickly.
I would imagine. I would imagine that. No, sorry. I imagine that is the case, man. I know last time Greg was on, we talked about that obviously you guys had that hiatus there for, I don't know, was it 14, 15 years or something, and then you end up doing having all this.
What was that? We broke up in '97. And then we got back together in 2013. So it's 16 years?
Yeah, so that's a long time.
Yeah.
Me and him talked.
That's like a young son.
Right, yeah. We're like driver's ed right now, you know?
Yeah.
Now, with this album, right now, obviously you guys had the EPs come out, throughout the year here. Was the recording easier this time around than say maybe Heart of a Monster, because it had been so long since you guys had maybe been in the same room together to actually write and record? Was it easier this time around for you guys?
I don't think it was any more or less easy. I think definitely on the Heart as a Monster, we established that we, as a band, and especially Ken and Greg, still have that chemistry that we had back in the day. I mean, that was like one of the first things that was like really obvious, that I think probably gave all of us a bit of reservation, when you're away from one another and working together for so long. The first thing that needs to work is being able to work together and produce, what you would call good stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. For me personally, the only way I found it more difficult was that it took a really, really long time to do the way we did it. So dealing with the time that we weren't working and I found myself waiting to be working, I think that was the only difficult part about the making of this record. We did it in a way where we didn't actually get together and write things together like we did on the previous record, on The Heart as a Monster. Ken and Greg got together a couple times a week, and they would churn out like 3 songs, sometimes 4 songs, and a segue's worth of material. And then I would get a demo, and then I would go over the material at a studio a couple times a week and just learn the arrangements on the songs and get the parts down and, work on that type of stuff. And then we would book a day where we would just do all the drums for that EP.
Wow, okay.
And we'd release it, and then, that would kind of go on again over the next, what was it, like 6 weeks in between EPs?
Yeah, it seemed like it happened pretty quick for you guys, man. It was just kind of like it went, mastered, and boom, there it is.
The first 2 were really quick. I think it was maybe March and May. So it was the 3rd month and the 5th month, and then there was all that time in between the 3rd and 4th. I think there was about 4 or 5 months where Greg was out on the road with Perfect Circle for some of that time. But then once Greg got back, they finished writing and we finished recording the 3rd and 4th EP between like August and the end of October. Wow. Yeah, I think by the end of October, both EPs were out. Or I should say the 3rd EP and the finished record was out.
Yeah, the finished record. I don't even think it's been out officially a full month as far as the full album itself. So, with this recording, obviously with the way people digest music now, it's very fast paced. Was having the EP come out every couple months, was that something you guys had talked about ahead of time? Like, let's do this and let's get 3, 4, 5, 6 songs out at a time, and then just release it all at the end. Was that something that did the climate dictate that for you guys?
Well, we did talk about it. Well, what we talked about was each of us had a lot of stuff going on, and we didn't have the finances like we had on the last record to, lock ourselves in the studio and write and record a record for 6 months. And I was working, and Greg was having a baby, and, Ken mixes and engineers a lot. We just didn't have the opportunity didn't present itself that we were going to be able to do it the same way we did the last record.
Right.
So what we basically wound up doing was coming up with what we felt was a creative way to do this process in kind of a new way, to do the process that it would facilitate us having personal lives while we were doing it. Unlike the previous record, there was a 6-month chunk of time where, we got up and we were in the studio all day long, 5 days a week for 6 months straight. So this record definitely allowed us more time to just sort of participate in our individual lives. And from that necessity sort of spawned the idea of how we were going to do this record. But it was early on where we were like, okay, we're going to come up with master artwork and a master title, and we're going to break those two things up into 4 sections.
Gotcha.
So the cart definitely came before the horse on this one.
Well, also, I think it also allows you to kind of breathe in between writing sessions too, where there's not really any pressure. You're just kind of making as you go, and you kind of get that time away too, because sometimes it's easier to view something when you step away from it. You can come back. Was that kind of the sense for you, recording these drum tracks, where okay, I did these 3 or 3, 4 songs. I get to step back into my everyday life, family, friends, work, and then in a couple months I come back to it and it's fresh and new again. It's not this locked in a room together kind of thing.
For me personally, I love being locked in a room and just when you get your stride, that creativity and getting it done. I would prefer that. I didn't like all the time in between. That kind of ate me up a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would have preferred to. Well, actually, no, I can't say preferred. This was a totally new experience, and it tried my patience. That's for sure. But at the same time, I mean, it was in the fashion of the band. I mean, it was a new and really creative way for us to do something. Throw the mold out the window, which I think is the death of most bands.
Yes. And
figure out a way to do something completely unlike anything we had previously done before. We certainly didn't go out of our way to make this a comfortable record, which just doing what we had always done, would have been the case.
Well, that kind of parlays into what I want to go to next, because I imagine you probably get a lot of fans that want to hear the redo or the add-on to Fantastic Planet and stuff from back in the 90s, and I think Heart is a Monster kind of touches on that a little bit. This album, I think, is a little bit more of a departure from the earlier stuff, but not so far to where it's not the same. It's not recognizable, but I think it's more of an advancement of your guys' sound as a band. Do you kind of feel that way as well?
I feel more that it's a natural progression. I mean, if you look at the leap from Comfort to Magnified, and then look at the leap from Magnified to Fantastic Planet, the Heart is a Monster and this record make perfect sense to me. And I don't think that when we listen to our music, we see it the same way as the listener. I think we definitely have a different perspective on it,
right,
where we are intentionally, I mean, the whole idea is to continue moving forward and doing things that are going to keep us interested and keep us compelled to continue working as a band together.
Now,
You know, and one of the main things you have to do is just sort of every time you start working on a new record is sort of push yourself into a place where you haven't been before. Luckily, in doing that, I mean, I think we have just such a recognizable core sound to begin with. We're always going to retain that no matter where we go. But, you know, it's in the way that for you, like listening to it, the way you listen to it, for me, from Fantastic Planet to The Heart is a Monster to this record, I mean, it just seems, I don't even think of it like that. It just seems really natural and like exactly like the thing that we were going to do next should be.
Nice. No, I dig that for sure. Now, you mentioned, obviously, you know, with working, is there touring involved coming up in the new year for 2019? Have you guys had a chance to even think about that or talk about it all?
There is. We are, without letting the cat out of the bag, we're definitely going to take the Christmas holiday off. And come January, February, we're going to start getting some of these new songs together. And obviously some of the old ones too, to start touring in early 2019.
Oh, fantastic! Well, hopefully you guys come back to Nashville. I was at the last two Nashville shows where you guys did the Fantastic Planet live, I believe, in its entirety, and then on the regular
Third and Lindley, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, Third and Lindley, which is a great venue. It's a really cool venue. They have some really great acts there. And that was a fantastic show, man. I enjoyed hearing you guys live and hearing those songs live. No,
I remember that you were probably at that show where our projections took a shit.
Yes, yeah. Were they?
We had to do the show without the projections. We were mortified, but it was still. I've actually seen that show. I don't know if it's on YouTube or somebody sent me a copy, and I think we really played our asses off, probably because we were just so mad that our projections died.
Well, I was actually...
No, we love Nashville. Nashville is like a must staple every time we go on tour. I mean, even back in the day when we used to pop through and play the Exit In, we always got so much love and support from Nashville.
That's great, but it's funny. I interviewed Scott Lucas from Local H. They just came back through town, and he was sharing a story about you guys. How I think it was right when they Pack Up the Cats. I think was kind of at its height or whatever, and they're like, yeah, man, they show up to Nashville, and he's like, we get to the Exit In, there's a line out the door, right? And he goes, and Failure played on before us, and we came out, and everybody had left. Or most of the people had left it, and he was sharing that story. Obviously he laughed about it now,
He was exaggerating. It definitely wasn't like that. They had a number one song at the time. Yeah. I believe the line out the door. I don't for a second believe that everyone laughed.
He was
funny.
It was good stuff.
Scott and I and Ryan are really good friends. We actually did a bunch of touring with them on the last record.
Yeah, but you guys are a great live band. They're a great live band as well. They just came back through town. But I encourage anyone listening, if you haven't seen Failure, or in Local H, since we're talking about Local H, do yourself a service and go pay the cover, whatever it is, and go join two fantastic live bands.
For sure. We don't fool around live.
No, man, you guys definitely don't. It's funny you mentioned that the screens going, or your backlighting screens going out at the Third and Lindsay show in Nashville. I was actually working as a photographer that night, and I was also pissed off. And I was like, fuck, because the lighting is not fantastic in there either. So I think I ended up with,
and our visuals were really cool on that tour, on both tours.
Yes, yeah, really, really cool. Just really cool light effects and silhouette stuff with the backlighting. You guys are fantastic. Do you, as far as the imagery and everything you guys do on the backdrop, is that something do you guys get together with and change every tour as far as the backlighting and the imagery and everything?
There's definitely there's definitely an idea at the beginning of every tour as to how we can make it better or make it different. I mean, you don't want to go. It depends on what the tour is, because we normally only do like 3, maybe 4 week tours. Like, we'll keep the same setup for 2 tours because it's all those people are still seeing it for the first time. Yeah, I mean, the majority of it, and like the opening films, I think you probably saw where we did the one with Power of 10.
Yes.
And then, did you see the Exit In show?
No, I did not see the Exit In show. I was at the Third and Lindsay shows though, which were fantastic.
Yeah, and the Exit In was that was in 2014, like when we first rebooted. And that was just us with no opening band. So that one had its own movie that we put together. Ken usually puts that stuff together. Like, Ken's definitely the visual and editing and final cut and all that stuff. The Powers of 10, I think that Greg brought to the table. We're of that era where I think pretty much everyone who was born in like early 70s, late 60s probably saw that film in school at one time or another.
Yeah, I doubt they show that in schools anymore. I would think that's probably not shown anymore.
I mean, for the most part, yeah, we try and get together and change it up as a group. I mean, it varies. Someone might pick up the phone and go, "Oh, I've got this great idea," and there's a chunk of whatever the visuals and or the opening film. Like I said, Ken is super strong in that department. I know Greg's always got a lot of great ideas for that too. On some of the tours, we just strung together like films that Ken and Greg were influenced by, or we were influenced by as a band, whether it be song content or when we were doing Fantastic Planet, we watched a lot of films. The Andrei Tarkovsky stuff, and that stuff always finds its way into the effects and films and all that stuff that we put together.
Well, your guys' new video, which features Dave Dastmalchian. Dastmalchian. Excuse me. Dark Speed, which kind of is right in that wheelhouse there. The imagery is great. Now, did you guys know him, or did your people reach out to him as far as being in the video, or?
Yes, he reached out to me. I guess probably in around 2015. He had this movie that was kind of autobiographical that he had written and starred in. And it was about a junkie living on the streets, and he had a personal story in the movie where he was living in his car and he had a copy of Fantastic Planet. And there's a scene in the film where he goes into a record store and they're stealing a bunch of cassettes and CDs to sell to get more drugs. And that's the one CD that he kept. And it remained in the car with him the whole time he was like living in his car and strung out.
Wow, really? Wow.
So he got a hold of me. He wanted to use a song from that record in the movie, I believe, at first, and there was no way that was going to happen because Warner had control of everything. And then he wanted to use, I think, just the cover of it. Like, he wanted to show that he was stealing that piece of music in the record store. But anyway, long story short, he invited Greg and I down to see the screening of the movie. So that's kind of how we became friends. And it was somewhere, I can't remember where, he was introduced to Ken, and Ken is just a crazy film buff, so they naturally hit it off. And we've become like really close friends with him. And Ken and him had been talking back and forth, and Ken came up with an idea for the video and reached out to him and asked him if he'd like to star in it. Yeah, and all that, again, I mean, Ken, that's his forte. He's the video directs and edits and does all the video stuff. back on like Stuck on You and Undone, and he's just obviously a man of many gifts.
Well, I think you guys have been a great band for a long time, and I'm glad you guys are back into the fold. And the new record's really great.
Thank you.
I enjoy it. The drum work on it is fantastic. I was excited to speak with you tonight, man. I appreciate the time. Now, do you have a favorite? My pleasure, man. Do you have a favorite track on the album that right now, or does it kind of change as the days go?
My favorite song, and it's not for any particular reason. I will never forget the moment that I put on the demo, and it just absolutely grabbed a hold of my insides and made me feel something that I rarely feel. And it's Furthest Rainbow.
Oh, because of the back end of the album. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Very
I mean, I love all of the songs. There isn't a song on the record that I don't love, but that song in particular, when I listen to it, like it stirs up something inside of me that I find particularly difficult to actually articulate what it is.
Yeah, I think the album has a vulnerable beauty to it in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of tranquility, and there's a lot of ebb and flow and ups and downs, and it does kind of take you. It's what you would expect from a failure album. It has a journey from start to finish, and well done. And a lot of people have talked about it.
It's an album.
It's an album. It takes you from one place to another, and in and out of a bunch of different feelings and emotions. And a lot of people have talked about it being album of the year, and I think it definitely should get some consideration when people are doing their back end of the year reviews. I feel like this album should definitely be on people's list.
I will say I don't mind when that happens. There were definitely a bunch of honorable mentions with The Heart is a Monster, and it was it felt really good. It felt like we had done our job, and people loved the record as much as we did.
Well, it's got to be a good feeling too, especially when you're kind of out of the the loop, for lack of a better word there, and then you come back after 15, 16 plus years, and to have people go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and to kind of to follow up with another fantastic record is a testament to your guys' musicianship and greatness as a band in general. I'm gonna let you run here. I don't want to keep you too long here,
cool,
Kelli. But is there anything that you wanted to talk about or say as we're wrapping up here, as far as whether it be tour, album, or I know there's a lot of things going on in the world politically as well. If you want to speak your mind, feel free, man.
I'll stay out of the politics.
Fair enough.
I think there are enough people out there talking about all the craziness that's going on that are much more eloquent than I would ever be. But I will reiterate something you touched on earlier, in that keep your eyes peeled, because we are going to be announcing some early touring stuff in March, and you definitely got to get out to one of these shows. We do not disappoint.
No, you guys are a fantastic band. And, it sounds like you'll be coming back to Nashville, so we should get together and
certainly,
and do a follow up and hang out and maybe have a drink or something if you guys want to, and do a follow up interview, man. I'd love to.
I would love that.
Fantastic.
I would love that, and we'll maybe we can get Greg in there too.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, next time it won't be by the poolside hotel or something. Maybe we can have a nice high top somewhere or something. But
although that does sound a little bit luxurious. Oh, I'll just be hanging out by the pool doing an interview.
You're right. Yeah, you just put the flip flops on, grab the beach towel and some sunblock, and we'll go hang out.
He's so cool.
Nice.
He's always doing cool stuff like that.
Right. Well, Kelli, again, man, thank you for the time. I appreciate you guys always being really cool. Whether it was interview photos, we've done some reviews of the last album. We're going to do the same here on the Revelator side as well. As you guys always willing to share and that information and stuff with your fans, and we appreciate it.
Dude, that's awesome. I super appreciate you taking the time out and just spending your time to interview a mug like me. I think that's pretty cool.
Hey, the pleasure's mine, man. I enjoy doing it. I've been doing I don't know. I think you're gonna be like 260 some odd shows or something I've done. So we just keep on chugging along, and we're gonna. It's one of those things where I was talking with a friend of mine who's in a band here in Nashville locally, and we went and caught a show together, recently, and she was like, you might not realize it now. She's like, but whenever you decide to stop doing what you're doing, when photographing all these shows and interviewing all these people, people are probably gonna appreciate you more when you stop doing it, than what you are doing. She's like, just keep doing it. People are taking notice, and just keep on keeping on, and I was like, I love music. I've always been a fan of music. I worked in radio for years, and it's just one of those things where, I think the industry needs a little more personal touch as opposed to just, cookie cutter stuff. I like having a nice natural conversation interview as opposed to being this forced 5-minute thing,
It's guys like you that guys like me can't live without. I mean, you're the megaphone. Like, you're getting the message out there.
Yeah, man.
For bands. So, I mean, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, the feeling is mutual. I appreciate you guys a lot. And let's close out with the single we were talking about, and I encourage everyone, we'll have a link for the video as well. It is Failure, Dark Speed here on Revelator.